In this podcast episode, Ben Shapiro dives into a variety of pressing topics, including the recent passage of a significant bill in the House of Representatives, the implications of a looming debt crisis, and the fallout from a terror attack in Washington, D.C. He also discusses the cultural landscape, featuring a guest appearance by actress Patricia Heaton. Shapiro begins by discussing the recent passage of what he refers to as the Big Beautiful Bill in the House of Representatives, which has garnered attention for its proposed tax cuts and funding for border security. President Trump celebrated this legislative victory, claiming it to be one of the most significant pieces of legislation in U.S. history. The bill includes provisions such as tax deductions for American-made vehicles and pay raises for border security personnel. However, Shapiro expresses skepticism about the bill's long-term impact on the nation's fiscal health, arguing that it does not adequately address the systemic drivers of America's debt, such as Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. He highlights a disconnect between the American public's perception of fiscal reality and the actual economic challenges facing the country. Shapiro points out that while the bill avoids massive tax increases, it fails to restructure entitlement programs that contribute significantly to the national debt. He emphasizes that the American people are largely unwilling to confront the necessary changes to entitlement programs, which leads to a cycle of poor fiscal policy. Shapiro delves deeper into the implications of the national debt, noting that the U.S. debt-to-GDP ratio is projected to reach alarming levels in the coming years. He compares the U.S. situation to other countries, such as Japan and Germany, highlighting the potential consequences of unchecked debt accumulation. Shapiro warns that the current legislative approach, which includes increased spending without corresponding revenue generation, could lead to a debt bomb that threatens the economic stability of the nation. He critiques the prevailing economic narratives that downplay the seriousness of the debt crisis, arguing that both political parties contribute to a populist economic policy that prioritizes short-term gains over long-term sustainability. Shapiro concludes that without a fundamental shift in how the government approaches fiscal responsibility, the U.S. is likely to face dire economic consequences. The podcast shifts focus to the recent terror attack in Washington, D.C., where 2 Israeli embassy employees were killed. Shapiro discusses the broader implications of rising anti-Semitism and the political responses to such violence. He critiques politicians who condemn anti-Semitism while simultaneously supporting narratives that contribute to a culture of hatred against Jews. Shapiro argues that the term anti-Semitism has become diluted and misused, making it difficult to address the root causes of violence against Jewish communities. He emphasizes the need for a more nuanced conversation about the lies and misinformation that fuel anti-Semitic sentiments, rather than simply labeling actions as anti-Semitic. Shapiro calls for a focus on the ideologies that lead to violence, suggesting that a failure to confront these ideologies allows for a permissive environment for such acts. In a lighter segment, Shapiro welcomes actress Patricia Heaton to discuss her work and the cultural landscape. Heaton expresses her concerns about the current state of Hollywood, particularly regarding the rise of radical ideologies that have infiltrated the entertainment industry. She notes that many in Hollywood are beginning to speak out against the extreme left, which has created a climate of fear and censorship. Heaton highlights her efforts with the October 7th Coalition, an initiative aimed at mobilizing Christians to support Israel and combat anti-Semitism. She expresses disappointment in the lack of response from Christian communities following the October 7th attacks, emphasizing the importance of solidarity between Christians and Jews in the face of rising anti-Semitism. Shapiro and Heaton discuss the media's complicity in downplaying the severity of the issues at hand, particularly regarding Biden's health and the broader implications of his presidency. Shapiro points out that the media has largely ignored the signs of Biden's cognitive decline, which raises questions about the integrity of the information being presented to the public. He argues that the media's failure to address these concerns reflects a broader agenda to protect the Democratic Party and its leaders. Heaton adds that the media's reluctance to confront uncomfortable truths about Biden's health and the implications for national security is troubling. Both agree that the American public deserves transparency and accountability from their leaders, especially when it comes to issues that directly impact the nation's safety and well-being.